Welcome everyone! In this video, we'll follow a man on his journey to hand-build a unique sauna cabin. How will he bring this cabin to life? Stay tuned until the end to see the amazing result. He decided to carry out the project inside his own woodworking workshop, a place filled with the scent of freshly cut timber and the sound of tools at work. The first step was to build a strong foundation for the sauna cabin. He carefully chose thick wooden beams, each one measured and cut to the right size. With steady hands, he joined the beams together, securing them tightly until they formed a grid-like frame. This lattice structure spread evenly across the floor, giving both balance and durability. Every joint was checked and reinforced to make sure the frame could hold the weight of the cabin to come. Slowly, the bare ground of the workshop transformed into a solid base, a promise of the cabin that was about to rise above it. Little by little, the frame began to take shape. Each beam connected firmly to the next, and with every joint secured, the structure grew more defined. At the base of the cabin floor, he carefully laid down sheets of insulation foam. These panels were fitted neatly between the wooden beams, creating a protective layer that would keep the heat inside the cabin while blocking out the cold from below. By adding this insulation, he not only improved the cabin's efficiency, but also ensured that the sauna floor would remain warm and comfortable. On top of the wooden frame, he added another layer of insulation to cover the entire surface of the floor. Each panel was placed carefully, fitting snugly against the edges to make sure no gaps were left behind. This upper layer created an extra shield, locking in warmth and strengthening the thermal protection of the cabin. To bring the floor to completion, he carefully prepared a series of solid wooden boards. Each piece was measured and trimmed to fit perfectly, ensuring there would be no uneven edges. Then, one by one, he laid the boards across the frame, pressing them tightly together so that every gap was sealed. The sound of wood striking against wood echoed through the workshop as the planks fell into place, creating a rhythm that marked steady progress. Slowly, the raw insulation beneath disappeared from sight, replaced by a clean, polished wooden surface. This carefully crafted base not only guaranteed stability for the structure, above but also promised comfort and warmth for the sauna experience that awaited. Next, he turned his attention to the walls. Using sturdy timber, he began crafting separate frames for each section of the cabin. Every piece of wood was measured with care, cut to the right length, and joined together with precision. Instead of building the walls directly in place, he assembled them one by one as individual frames, each designed to fit perfectly with the others. This method allowed him to focus on every detail, ensuring the corners were square, the joints tight, and the structure strong. Once the wall frames were ready, he carefully lifted each one onto the floor structure. With steady effort, he raised them upright and positioned them at the edges of the base. One by one, the frames stood tall, transforming the flat foundation into the beginnings of a room. He then secured each section firmly, connecting them together at the corners and along the edges. Every joint was reinforced, so the walls locked tightly into place, forming a sturdy shell around the cabin. Moving upward to the roof, he designed the walls at different heights, so the structure would naturally form a sloping shape. This thoughtful arrangement created the proper angle for water to run off and gave the cabin its classic roofline. With the slope defined, he began adding diagonal wooden beams to build the pitch framework. Each beam was carefully positioned, spaced evenly apart to distribute the weight across the structure. He hammered them firmly into place, making sure every joint was strong and aligned. Slowly, the skeleton of the roof came together, an elegant grid of angled beams rising above the walls. To finish, he secured the edges with neat trim work, outlining the roof's form and giving the frame both stability and a clean appearance. With this step complete, the cabin now had a sturdy roof structure, ready to be covered and transformed into a protective shelter. On top of the roof frame, he began laying wooden boards to cover the structure above. Each plank was lifted into place and carefully aligned so it sat flush against the beams, closing the open spaces one by one. He worked methodically, making sure the boards were pressed tightly together, leaving no gaps where wind or rain could slip through. With every row added, the roof grew stronger and more complete, transforming from a bare skeleton into a solid shield. Beneath the cabin walls, he wrapped the entire structure with a protective layer of waterproofing paper. Starting from one corner, he carefully unrolled the sheets and fastened them tightly against the wooden frame, making sure they overlapped to block out any moisture. For the exterior walls, he prepared large wooden panels to cover the frame. Each board was carefully measured and sawed with precision, ensuring the edges were straight and smooth. He then lifted the heavy planks one by one and pressed them firmly against the cabin's structure, securing them in place. The sound of the saw cutting through wood filled the workshop, followed by the steady rhythm of nails being driven in. Slowly, the bare framework of the walls vanished, hidden behind layers of solid timber. These wide panels not only gave the cabin a neat, polished look, but also added extra strength to its walls. Every cut and placement was done with care, as he aimed to create a surface that was both protective and visually appealing. With each panel set firmly in place, the cabin began to look more complete, its walls standing tall and strong. Once the wooden panels were securely in place, he moved on to finishing the surface. With a brush dipped in black paint, he carefully coated the exterior walls, covering the fresh timber with a deep, even color. He carried on with the finer details, starting by painting the wooden trims in a deep black tone to match the bold exterior walls. Each piece was brushed carefully, layer by layer, until the surface looked smooth and even, with no grain of raw wood left exposed. When the paint had dried, he began fixing these trims around the wide window openings at the front of the cabin. Bit by bit, the rough edges disappeared behind neat black borders, giving the facade a sharp and polished look. With the frame secure, he turned to the glass panels. One by one, he lifted the sheets with caution, their clear surfaces reflecting the light as he guided them into place. The glass slid snugly into the black frames, sealing the openings and creating a beautiful contrast against the dark wood. As the final panel was set, the cabin seemed to transform. Its once empty walls now held large, gleaming windows that reflected the outside world while letting streams of sunlight pour into the interior. This step not only added elegance and refinement, but also gave the sauna cabin a sense of openness, connecting the cozy space within to the natural surroundings beyond. After finishing the windows, he turned his attention to the entrance. Carefully, he crafted a sturdy main door from solid wood, making sure its size and shape fit perfectly into the front opening of the cabin. With steady hands, he lifted the heavy piece into place and secured it with strong hinges, testing it several times to ensure it swung open and closed with ease. With the walls and door in place, he moved on to the interior work. He began by running electrical wiring across the ceiling, carefully threading the cables through the wooden frame so that the system would remain hidden yet accessible. Once the wiring was complete, he turned to finishing the ceiling itself. One by one, wooden boards were lifted overhead and secured tightly against the beams, gradually covering the bare frame. Afterward, he continued on the outside, using similar wooden boards to cover the exposed edges of the cabin walls. These exterior panels not only concealed the structural joints, but also gave the building a refined, polished appearance. With both ceiling and wall edges finished, the cabin felt more complete, solid on the outside, cozy on the inside, and ready for the next stage of transformation. Once the ceiling was finished, he began adding lighting to the exterior. He carefully measured the positions on the outer ceiling where the bulbs would go. Then, one by one, he installed the light fixtures, connecting them neatly to the electrical system he had set up earlier. Next, he prepared the finishing touches for the windows and outer edges of the cabin. He carefully sawed wooden beams into precise lengths, each piece measured to fit perfectly against the corners and borders. The sharp sound of the saw echoed as the fresh cuts revealed the pale grain beneath the dark surface. Once ready, he lifted each strip of wood and fixed it neatly along the edges of the window frames, giving them clean, defined borders. He continued around the cabin, attaching the trim pieces to the outer corners and wall edges, covering joints that were once exposed. With the trims and edges in place, he moved on to protecting and finishing the exterior surface. Taking up a can of glossy varnish, he dipped his brush and began coating the wooden walls of the cabin. Stroke after stroke, the dull surface of the wood transformed, coming alive with a deep sheen that reflected the sunlight. The varnish not only enhanced the rich texture and grain of the timber, but also formed a protective layer against rain, wine, and time. After finishing the wooden surfaces, he turned to the roof for its final touches. He had prepared sleek black metal trims, each one carefully cut to size so they would fit along the roof's edges. Piece by piece, he lifted the heavy frames and positioned them neatly over the wooden border, securing them firmly with nails and screws. The sharp black lines contrasted beautifully against the dark wooden panels, outlining the roof with a clean, modern finish. As he worked his way around, the bare edges of the roof disappeared, replaced by a strong metallic frame that both protected the structure and gave it a bold, elegant look. These trims not only added durability, shielding the roof from rain and wind, but also elevated the cabin's appearance, making it look more refined, polished, and complete from every angle. With the trim secured, he moved on to covering the roof completely. One by one, he lifted large sheets of corrugated metal up to the top of the cabin. The panels were carefully aligned, their ridges overlapping to keep out rain and wind. As more panels were added, the open frame of the roof slowly disappeared beneath a continuous shield of metal. Just as he had done with the roof, he added finishing details to the exterior walls. Along the outer edges of the cabin, he carefully installed black metal trims, each piece measured and cut to match the height and corners of the structure. One by one, the strips were lifted into place and secured tightly against the wood, covering the exposed joints and sharp corners. With every side finished, the sauna cabin no longer looked like a simple wooden shelter, but rather a refined, well-crafted building. Moving inside the cabin, he turned his focus to insulation. To keep the sauna warm and energy efficient, he carefully added thick sheets of mineral wool to the inner sides of the walls and ceiling. Each piece of insulation was cut to size and pressed snugly into the wooden frame, filling every gap so that no heat could escape. After placing the mineral wool, he reinforced the insulation by adding heat-resistant panels across the walls and ceiling. Each sheet was carefully measured, cut, and fitted tightly over the soft layers beneath, sealing them in and creating a smooth inner surface. These panels acted as an extra barrier, reflecting heat back into the cabin and ensuring the warmth would remain steady once the sauna was in use. Inside the cabin, he gave the walls and ceiling their final finish by covering them with smooth wooden boards. Each plank was measured and cut to fit perfectly, then lifted into place and secured tightly against the insulated frame. One by one, the panels went up, hiding the layers beneath and replacing them with the warm, natural look of polished timber. The transformation was striking. What had been raw insulation now looked like a refined interior, glowing with the inviting texture of natural wood. The cabin's inside began to feel cozy and intimate, a place designed not only for strength and warmth, but also for comfort and beauty. With the interior walls and ceiling completed, he turned his attention to the seating inside the sauna. He had already built a sturdy wooden frame for the benches, and now it was time to finish their surface. Carefully, he measured and cut smooth wooden planks, sanding them so that no rough edges would remain. One by one, the boards were placed across the frame, fitted snugly together to create a flat and comfortable surface for sitting. Once the bench surfaces were finished, he carefully carried them into the cabin and set them into their proper positions. He checked the alignment, making sure the boards sat level and firm, then secured them tightly so they would remain steady under weight. To bring a warm and inviting atmosphere to the sauna, he added LED lighting beneath the benches. Carefully, he ran the slim light strips along the underside of the wooden seats, fixing them securely so they remained hidden from direct view. For the seating arrangement, he decided to build the benches in 2 tiers, creating both a lower and an upper level. Each level was supported by a sturdy wooden frame, with smooth planks secured tightly across the top to form a solid sitting surface. To refine the seating structure, he turned his attention to the gaps between the two bench levels. Using additional wooden slats, he carefully covered the exposed openings, closing off the empty spaces beneath the upper tier. Each piece was cut to size and fixed neatly into place, hiding the supporting frame while giving the benches a cleaner, more finished look. To enhance both the look and the atmosphere of the cabin, he added LED lighting along the upper walls. Carefully, he ran the light strips around the perimeter, securing them neatly so they were hidden behind the wooden trim. Next, he prepared the area where the sauna stove will be installed at the very heart of the cabin. To begin, he built a clear boundary at the chosen spot, marking out the section that would safely contain the heat. Once the frame was in place, he carefully applied a thick layer of mortar, spreading it evenly across the surface. One by one, he pressed natural stone pieces into the wet mortar, arranging them tightly together until the entire section was covered. The rough texture of the stones contrasted beautifully with the smooth wooden walls, giving the interior a rustic, authentic touch. More importantly, this stone layer acted as essential insulation, protecting the wood from the stove's intense heat. With the insulated corner ready, he carefully brought in the sauna stove and set it into its place. The heavy structure was positioned firmly within the stone-lined boundary, resting solidly on the protective base he had prepared. Once secured, he began connecting the chimney, attaching the metal pipe directly to the stove and guiding it upward. Piece by piece, the pipe was extended until it reached the roofline, where he carefully cut through and allowed the chimney to pass straight through the ceiling and out above the cabin. Every joint was sealed tightly to ensure safety, preventing smoke from escaping into the room. As the last section was fixed, the stove and chimney stood as the centerpiece of the sauna, an installation that would carry away the smoke while keeping the heat trapped inside. With this step complete, the cabin was no longer just a wooden structure. It now held the beating heart of a true sauna, ready to fill the space with warmth and steam. Inside the cabin, he focused on the finishing touches to make the space both beautiful and durable. He carefully smoothed the wooden surfaces of the walls, ceiling, and benches. Once the sanding was complete, he opened a can of glossy varnish and began brushing it across the surfaces. Stroke after stroke, the pale wood transformed, taking on a rich golden sheen that caught the light beautifully. For a final decorative touch, he chose a single round piece of wood and carefully cut it into shape. The disc was sanded smooth, its edges refined until it looked both simple and elegant. Carrying it inside, he lifted the piece up to the ceiling and fixed it neatly in place, right over the central light fixture. The circular wooden cover hid the bowl from direct view, softening the glow and turning it into a warm, diffused light that spread gently across the cabin. Against the clean lines of the ceiling boards, the round wooden accent stood out beautifully, blending function with design and giving the sauna a final touch of craftsmanship. And with that final detail in place, the sauna cabin was complete. What had once been only an idea, then piles of wood and scattered tools, now stood as a finished retreat solid, warm and full of character. Thank you for joining him on this journey. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe so you won't miss the next adventures. Goodbye for now, and see you again in the upcoming videos.